Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I'm going to try and make a weird point, and probably a weird point coming from me, but let's see where it goes and see how many of you are on board with this. Um, to me, the essence of comics, and that's always a douchey way to start anything, the essence of comics needs to be that we're rebels to some extent. Comics, comics are pop culture entertainment. They were never the mainstream. They were never designed to be the mainstream. And while I appreciate that the MCU is given me the opportunity to see Captain America pick up Thor's hammer or some other shit that's gone on. It wasn't ever meant to be, mass market. I'm glad it is because it's given some people some big paychecks. Unfortunately, not the right people. But comics to me was always meant to be somewhat of a rebel activity. That's my belief of it. Now, it doesn't have to be yours, and I'm not speaking for all of comicsdom, whatever the fuck that means. But comics was always meant to be a bit of a rebellion. And I think when comics have been best, and for that matter, when other pop culture items, when wrestling has been at its best, it you felt like you were a bit of a rebel. You felt like you were a bit of an independent who were liking something outside of the mainstream. The Monday Night Wars in pro wrestling were so popular because you felt like you were watching something like borderline illegal. You felt like you were a part of something different. That was the energy and the feel of what you got. Comics, you definitely, I'm not going to discount the most important thing in all this is the story and kind of really comics and narratives and characters and moments that you're going to remember. But you also enjoyed the fact that you weren't reading or paying attention to the most popular thing in the universe. You weren't into, the preppy thing. You were into something more meaningful. I would argue that manga and part of its rise of popularity has been the offshoot. You were doing something more niche. You were doing something more unique. Now, whether that was actually true or big companies were marketing to you that was true, I mean, that's I'm gonna say irrelevant, but that's kind of beside the point. The idea is that when things feel more unique to you, they're more popular. And to me, that's the essence of comics. Now, I'm going to take a bit of a left turn here, but I promise it will come back to the point in the end. I like listening to Critical Drinker. I like listening to it because he's got a well polished thing going on. I also like listening to Ryan George, and I would consider Ryan George a friend. I recently discovered I can't remember the name of the channel, but it's if you put in like Thug book review, you'll get it. But basically, the premise is somebody's giving a literature review in kind of a thug style, and it's funny. But I enjoy kind of quick, easy entertainment. But back to Critical Drinker for a second. I like his style, even though it's clearly to me a bit. When he talks about like this is the worst film, I listened to a video recently. He's talking about the Rings of Power. He's like, this thing was so shitty. It was the shittiest thing I've ever done. I've actually contemplated how shitty it was. And he's kind of going on and on about that. And I'm listening to it go, it's funny how he's describing it. That said, I feel pretty confident that when there's Rings of Power 3 or when there's some other dumb thing that comes out, it will be the new worst thing he's ever heard. It's just that's the bit. That's kind of the premise. We listen to these things because we kind of are annoyed by the property. And so it's funny to hear somebody just roast the living shit out of it, even if that doesn't entirely make sense. I watched the Rings of Power, the first episode. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad either. I'm saying this, people accuse this channel of being like, oh, he's on the fence. This was popularized by a couple of YouTubers who said, Perch is on the fence because they were uncomfortable. They didn't want to completely come at me from a he's full of shit because I was saying some things they agreed with, but they also didn't agree with my, like, he's not outraged about everything. So we have to all be mad. So they're kind of like stuck. So the thing they went with is he's on the fence. But the reality is for a lot of entertainment, I go home, I turn on the TV. Sometimes my wife, sometimes my daughters are watching it. And this is going to sound like an old man. I fully acknowledge that. I mean, look, if you've been listening to this channel for any length of time, you're not somebody who just showed up because some dumbass channel who's like, Perch is picking on me, in their thumbnail pointed you here. By the way, some of you, I'm I don't know. I'm one step away from just putting the emails in the video, but seriously, don't act like a tough guy in your video with like Perch is a cuck and he's picking on me. And some of you fuckers have done that. And then you send me emails saying, "Hey, would you have me on your show? Why are you picking on me?" Don't be a bitch. God damn. Like comics is meant to be a rebel. Either be a rebel or fuck off. Don't be a bitch. Anyway, um, where's I going with all this? Anyway, I watch some of these shows, and again, I self acknowledge that this is lame. It's old man lame. I put on Rings of Power. My wife is watching it with me. I remember seeing a bunch of Middle Earth bullshit and some recaps going on, and they were doing a little bit of flashback. And then I remember there were hobbits. And I look over, and my wife goes, "Oh, man, was I too noisy?" And I am confused, and I go, what do you mean? And she's like, "Oh, you were asleep for like 30 minutes of that." And literally what had happened was we were sitting on the couch, I was watching this show, and then I kind of leaned over on the couch to get comfortable, and then I fell asleep in this show for like 30 minutes. And granted, it is, if you listen to, say, Critical Drinker, and I'm not pissing on him, but if you listen to him, he will give you a way more entertaining version of why this show is shit. I will give you my lame version of why the show is shit. I fell asleep in the middle of it, and I lost half the show, and then I thought, do I want to rewind? No, no, it's not. I don't fucking need to rewind, and I didn't. And then it got to the end of the episode, and my wife turns to me and goes, "You want to just you want me to get some popcorn here? We could watch the second episode." And I'm like, I'm good. I think I need to take out the trash. This is a true story, by the way. I picked, so let me recap what Rings of Power meant to me. Second season, episode 1. I fell asleep for half the episode, and then I decided to take out the trash rather than watching the second episode in this series. Second episode, second season. To me, that is more death for that show than anything else. But it is very popular. It's very popular to roast and crap on the show in really entertaining ways. And so one of the reasons why I enjoy listening to Critical Drinker is he does a very good job of roasting in an entertaining way. Whereas my way would be, I watch this show. It wasn't that bad. I just fell asleep in the middle of it and then thought domestic chores would be more entertaining than actually watching more. And to me, that's the harsh, that's the, in the word of the 90s, that's the harshest burn you could give to anything. And pulling it back to comics and kind of connecting from the beginning of this video, I feel like entertainment, whether it's movies, TV, pop culture, wrestling, comics, whatever it happens to be, when it feels edgy, when it feels dangerous. I'll remember the very first time I talked to Ben Templesmith on the phone. It was a personal story. And I called Ben, and we started talking, and Ben is acting a little weird because he's like, "Hey, I know your name because of caller ID. And should I know your name?" And I'm like, I don't care. I called you. I feel I don't mind that you know my name. I'm sitting there slightly starstruck because for me, and I don't know that he ever realizes how much he means to me. When I read 30 Days a Night and I looked at his art and I looked at what he had done, I was blown away. It was one of those moments in my life, and having lived all the years of my life that I have, um, seeing that art and seeing what he brought to the table was, I mean, it was groundbreaking for me. I've had that experience with a few artists, and thankfully, I've been able to interview or talk to the majority of them. But Temple Smith, his art was striking to me. And I told him on the phone, I remember this very clearly. He would confirm it if he's listening to this video. I don't know if he is. Um, I told him, I love your art. The reason I love it is because it feels dangerous, because your art doesn't feel safe. And I don't know what he thought of that. Who knows when you're talking to somebody on the phone for the first time? But I meant it. Like, his art was rebellious. It was dangerous. It didn't feel like homogenized corporate art. It felt like something meaningful that I wanted to remember. And to me, the most striking thing about comics or pop culture or comics or anything else is how it makes you feel. Does it make you feel dangerous? Does it make you feel, does it make you feel something? And so when you look at a lot of pop culture today, it's entertaining to listen to a roast. It's, I enjoy Critical Drinker. Still the guy who, in my mind, did the best roasts of all time. And I was building, a little kind of a workshop in my house. And I remember very, very clearly, hammer, belt of nails, and a drill. And I'm up on the roof and I'm putting in tiles in the skylight. And I'm listening to Nurkish, and he's roasting the shit out of Faith and a couple other comics. It was hilarious, and I loved that roast. It was great. That's entertaining. But the entertainment is kind of frosting on a fairly empty cake, a fairly empty dessert. So while I'm entertained by YouTube channels and different people who can make something bland funny, that's fun, the bigger problem is it's bland. The bigger problem is sitting in front of Rings of Power and falling asleep. I don't have a lot. A lot of YouTube channels and people who shit on this show and me, they want me to come on and go, God damn it, it's woke and fuck, too many, black lesbian women in this show. That's what they want to hear. But the problem is I'm too bored to say any of that. I don't care that the dwarf wife is a black woman. I don't care. It's boring. She could be a cartoon. She could be Garfield. She could be. It doesn't matter. The dialogue and the plot is so awful. I don't care about the race, the sexuality, the gender. I don't care. It's boring. That's the cardinal sin. That's problem number one. And so to me, comics need to be rebellious. They need to be exciting. They need to stir something in you. They need to feel dangerous. The way I felt when I picked up 30 Days a Night and I look at Temple Smith's art for the first time and I think, fuck, this is dangerous. This is meaningful art. I guarantee you that many of you, if you're comic fans, you have felt this for someone. And I'll bet for most of you listening to this right now, it's not the same person. Chances are it's somebody different. There was somebody in your life when you were reading comics that made you read the page and then read it a second time going, wow, this is not what I was expecting. This is something powerful, something different, something dangerous, something rebellious, something unique. That is what makes comics great. Not bland. Not reading, this character is depressed and we're deconstructing superheroes for the 800th time. That is the secret to comics. If you want to be meaningful, and it may not mean, much in the moment. If you want to be meaningful, be dangerous, be rebellious, be different. There's going to be somebody out there on YouTube or somewhere else who will roast your comic. Definitely somebody like Critical Drinker or Nurkish can come along. Well, and he's not doing it anymore, but they can come along and they can make your comic funny. But that doesn't change the fact that your comic was dull. Granted, I'm old and shitty, so I'm falling asleep during, Rings of Power, but I loved Bullet Train. That movie was fun. I didn't fall asleep during that thing. I I binge watched Squid Game and it was funny. And it was, funny and entertaining. That is entertainment. Boredom is the sin. The roast is a distraction. Thanks for listening.